Hello, everyone, and welcome to our coverage of Day 2, Saturday, of London Comic Con. Seen perfectly fine in your mirror. So this was our first real full day of the con. We got to do a lot more stuff than we did yesterday. Got to buy a few more things.
It was real full indeed.
And there were a lot more people there.
Wow, were there ever... There were a lot of people there today.
Yeah, it was Friday. Nobody bid on Friday, I think. It seemed almost empty.
I guess there was only maybe 3 hours of programming yesterday. And I mean, if it's not worth your time to drive over there, then...
Yeah, it's not really going to be worth it.
No. So, yeah, today was sort of the most jam-packed programming day. Tomorrow's going to be shorter as well, because it starts around the same time, but it ends at 6, I think.
Yeah, 5 or 6, something like that. So a little bit of a shorter day than today.
Today, I mean, we left and there was still stuff going on.
Keep recording. I'm just going to turn this kitchen light on.
Nothing. We were super interested. Well, one thing we were super interested in, but we were kind of calling the day. And then there was after party and stuff, which sadly we're not going to. But yeah, we pretty much we got a full day in.
That we did. Yeah, this one felt like there was a little more energy, a little more going on. Even just with the amount of people that were there. There's probably like 4 times as many people as there were on Friday.
Easily.
Friday seemed a little lackluster. People wandering around. Like a lot of the vendors were like kind of bored on Friday because there's not a lot going on. But
well, I mean, even today, all the personalities were there.
Exactly.
Like all the celebrities were there. All the artists were there. All the vendors, yeah. Yeah. So yesterday, a lot fewer people were there.
Yeah, this was when Ron Perlman was there, which we missed.
I caught like 2 questions of his Q&A.
Yeah.
It was really, really busy, and it wasn't anything I was super interested in, so I just happened to walk by. Where were you?
I was in the Q&A for...
Oh, Nintendo Quest, yeah. And I had just sort of decided to do a circuit, and he's sitting on the couch answering questions. Yeah,
it's the way the main stage is set up, like right in the middle of everything. It the sound is just open to everything, so it gets eaten really good. And if you're sitting at the back, it's not that easy to hear unless somebody's like really like eating the microphone. So that's kind of unfortunate. Let's start with the first thing that we did. The
first thing I did was buy stuff. That was the very first thing I did. I was like, go spend some money.
You were like really enthused coming in, like, all right, I got to grab that.
Yeah. Shall I show?
Do you have what you have?
I do. Okay. First thing I bought, as promised. Ba-bam. It's amazing. You're all jealous. Oh, I guess I spent $50 on it.
So there you go.
So now you know what I spent on this. Barbie and Ken's Star Trek 2-pack. They are dressed as members of the original series Star Trek. It's from 1990. I have to look at this. Sorry. Mid-90s. 96.
Okay.
And it was something that, to be totally honest, I don't remember coming out when I was around in 96. But I would have been 9. So I wasn't...
not necessarily...
No one in my family is really into Star Trek, and I got obviously more into it later. Now that I'm looking at the box, I'm kind of understanding why it wasn't more. But I think it's a really cool piece.
Is that... It says 30th anniversary, would that be for Star Trek?
Star Trek.
Yeah, because it would have been 60 in the mid-60s. Yeah.
Yeah. So, wouldn't have been Barbie, because Barbie was 59.
Right. So it was for the anniversary of Star Trek. That makes sense.
Yeah. And I saw it yesterday. Wanted to deliberate on like the cost and if I wanted it. Basically, the first thing I was like, I gotta go buy that.
You slept on it and had come to a decision quite easily.
Yeah. So I mean, that was kind of my big nerd purchase for the day. I also got. This is kind of like a side episode of the Barbie cast. Right now.
Yeah.
The 1996 holiday Barbie, who's just bawling. Like, look at this. This is my winter outfit for this year. You can't really tell because the camera's not great and the lighting's not great. It's like a maroon or burgundy velvet coat and gold, and it's beautiful.
And it turned out to be something more significant than you thought initially.
Yeah. So again, as I talked about on the collecting podcast, that my main complete or most complete collection of Barbies is the holiday Barbies, starting with 1997. I didn't even think at the time. She had 2 dolls there. Asked me which one I want. I just sort of decided this one. I didn't have either of them. I might go back and buy the other. And didn't think about what each year looked like. And then I got home and I looked at the box and I was like, right, this is 96. Which one do I have? Because most of my collection's back at home at my parents' place. And I have 97 onwards. So this is exactly in line with where my collection is.
And the first year is what again?
88.
Okay, so you're not that.
No, I'm not.
Not that far off.
No,
so
I'm
this is
$8 off.
They
become more ostentatious as you go backwards in time because you're getting towards the early 90s and the mid 80s.
Yeah.
And probably something that I'll eventually get. And that was pretty much it for purchases for me today.
It turned out to be really fortuitous for you. That person was there.
Yeah, and apparently there's a doll show in London November 1st, I think she said. She gave me the flyer, so I might have more merchandise in 2 weeks. Oh man, November is like a month from now. Not 2 weeks from now. I might have more merchandise in a month and a half. But that was basically my purchase for the day. I didn't buy anything else. None of the plush I saw was anything I really wanted. If anybody has a Stunfisk Pokemon plushie, please send him to me.
It was so
because I want
the idea
him.
is so magnificent that like the other one's just like
so much. He's like my favorite guy right now for visual and hilarity reasons. And then like couldn't find any comics I was super interested in. Artist Alley, still not anything that super is wowing me.
Yeah,
but you bought a bunch of things.
Yeah, there were a few more vendors this time, and a lot of the space was taken up by like another massive comic book collection.
Did you see the dog collars for actual dogs?
Oh no, I didn't.
It was called like Barksley or I don't remember.
Of course.
Sorry. Actually, I can probably look it up right here. And it was like all those geeky prints, but done in like a dog collar for your dog.
That's cool.
We sadly do not have a dog. Barkenstein.
Of course.
And otherwise I would be buying like several accessories
but
for our dog, which we don't.
I didn't see anything that was like totally, completely unique to compared to stuff that was there on Friday. Though there were more vendors. The first thing I did was get a copy of Pokemon Platinum.
Well, that's still in my purse.
Which is still in your purse because it's just the cartridge. There's no box or anything with it. Just to kind of like round out the DS collection of Pokemon games we're quickly gathering.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gotten Pearl, so now I'm gonna play Platinum, see what the differences are.
Because you haven't played Platinum. You haven't played the Diamond Pearl. I've played Pearl. Maybe Z and I will do a podcast one day. And I guess you can join the podcast for how we feel about Diamond Pearl and Platinum.
So
Z has opinions. I have slightly different opinions.
So when I'm finished with X, I can check out Gen 4.
And then we'll switch.
Which I'm excited about. Exactly. So there was that. And the other thing was I checked out the sort of Pokemon themed booth. Like they had a lot of Pokemon merchandise, but not exclusively Pokemon.
It was probably the booth that had the most Pokemon merchandise. They had a bunch of plushies. They had some of the card game. A lot of their T-shirts were Pokemon themed. They had some like stuff too. They had a couple of. No, they didn't have a set of the gym badges. They had Zelda stuff.
They had Zelda stuff. They had like a couple like pendants and stuff.
Yeah, and then they had a bunch of the Funko Pop figurines, which again, I think we said yesterday, are everywhere.
Literally everyone has them.
Yeah.
And nobody has Mordecai.
I found a Muscle Man, but that was it. That's
regular show ones are out there, but Mordecai apparently is a rarity. Yeah. At least at London Comic Con.
Yeah. So sorry, you were saying.
So yeah. So it turns out, I didn't realize this yesterday, but the smaller plushies were a lot cheaper than the big ones. So I thought, why not get 2 small ones instead of 1 big one? So from X, I got Go-Goat.
Go-Goat.
The trusty goat Pokemon.
He's so trusty.
He's very trusty. You can ride him. He's
Adorbs.
Got good defense.
He's adorbs. He learns
a variety of moves and is adorable. So there's Go-Goat, repping the new. I think. Put him back. there.
His legs are a little squashed, so he doesn't stand
He's
very
still
well.
he's still stretching. And then trusty Jolteon, my favorite of the evolutions, the guy who took me through Pokemon Blue, who I'll always have a soft spot for.
Man, yeah, Eevee is not a huge.
So I feel like I gotta rep Jolteon. So those were my purchases for the day.
We sadly don't have any t-shirts.
No, none of the t-shirts quite made it over the line for me to purchasing, but inspired us to look for t-shirts online.
Yeah.
So
I should hand make the t-shirt I want, which is Mordecai and the Rigby's.
Yes. Very little representation of regular show, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I don't know why that is.
Or
I
even
guess I just
Adventure Time, as you pointed out.
Yeah. I don't know why. Maybe I spent just the circles I spend a lot of time in on the internet. I assume it's just like, oh, everybody loves these shows and they're available everywhere. And I mean, I definitely saw some Adventure Time cosplay today and yesterday. I saw like a Finn was watching some of the short films with me. I saw Princess Bubblegum at one point. They had some of the vendors had aprons and pillowcases and whatever made in the Adventure Time kind of splash panel fabric, but not a lot of merch.
Like, it could be as simple as it's quite a small con and Adventure Time's not on right now. It could be as easy as that.
Could totally be.
No excuse for regular show because it is on right now, but whatever. So what we actually did today, the first thing we did was split off.
Yeah, which is good.
Yeah, and go to different things, so we have more that we experience individually.
And I feel like we haven't actually talked too much about it, so we are going to update each other while we update you.
That's right.
So what...
Yeah, do you want...
Yeah, I mean, I can talk about what I did first. I sat down and watched the makeup effects presentation by, I need to get his name, Tate Steinsick, who was, I believe, on Face Off Canada. He was doing a live zombie face and answering questions about his influences and how he feels about just the horror genre and the makeup art, and he was really interesting, and it was really cool to see the look come together, the look on the model come together while he was doing the Q&A. We'd missed the beginning because I got up late, to be totally honest. I wanted to sleep in.
Well, you made it for most of it.
We made it for most of it. I missed maybe the first 20 minutes or so, and I don't know, I like the makeup art. I like how that was coming together, and he was talking about some of the things he was doing while he was doing them and kind of explaining rationale, and it was really, really interesting. I don't know, all the cosplays I kind of have filed away in my head, none of them require too much in the way of complex makeup, but it definitely kind of got me thinking, like, okay, if I need to do it, it's something I could certainly do. And he was very personal, and he was great, and the face came together looking really, really good at the end.
I just came in the end, and he was most of the way through already, but I saw even the bit he did while I was sitting there, it was very impressive, and he was very easily chatting about it as he was doing it, which was great. And the only problem was, again, he was on the main stage, he was a little hard to hear at times, but
I didn't find him as hard to hear as I found
the
guy. The MC was not great, and again, this is like an acoustics issue, I think, and maybe they had the mic turned up so loud on Tate that they couldn't turn it up on the MC's mic as well, because I found him hard to understand, and I really, really found when he was handing the microphone to people
that you couldn't.
I could not. I was like gathering what they asked based on if they repeated it or what the context of the answer was. So I mean, that's really I think a pitfall of just the space, because you said, it's in the middle of the entire, it's just a big room.
So much of the noise gets swallowed so easily.
Whereas in the other room, which is where you were, you kind of have the opposite
it's
experience.
Loud, everything bounces off. So you can hear everything clearly, but sometimes
too clearly,
too much, too straight into the ear holes.
So tell me about what you did.
So I went to How to Get Started in Voiceover.
Okay.
Which wasn't a very long. It was about half an hour actually, but it was is a presentation that was very much based around talking about what your career path might be if you want to get started in voiceover, there's not a lot of talking about like the craft of voiceover, like the different ways to make voice.
Refer to I Know That Voice if you want to hear that sort of thing.
Exactly.
Because honestly, that's what they talk about for
I feel like I could have been ready for the advanced class because I'd seen I Know That Voice. Because she'd be like, oh, like this is Nancy Cartwright and this is Rob Paulson. She liked to talk about a couple of the
like the big
voice
names,
names of voice actors. But she is Juliana Lance is from Voices.com, which is a website that places voice artists with people who want to hire them, and,
cool.
and businesses with voice artists to do work for them.
So she doesn't do voice work herself.
I'm not sure whether she does or not.
Okay.
When asked what voices she did, she replied "Angry Girlfriend." but yeah, she was representing Voices.com, so that was kind of highlighted a little bit. But it was interesting.
She was more talking about it from the business point of view.
Exactly. She was like, okay, what you need to do is practice anywhere, practice reading, practice in front of a mirror. If you watch a lot of cartoons, imitate the voices, make yourself a demo tape, send it out there. It used to take so long to get something recorded, and you'd have to record a cassette tape, but now you can do jobs across the world in hours.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Because of the internet. And talked a little bit about Don LaFontaine, who's the In a World guy, and he used to go around from studio to studio to studio in a limo because he was so in demand, maybe just like from trailers and stuff like that. And he's like, you know what, I'm gonna make them come to me, and he got a studio set up in his own house. And she talked a little bit about the guy that set up that studio for him and how to get a good recording set up at home.
Oh.
And like just so you can get like decent sounding work out without having to leave your house. And yeah, and then she directed to Voices.com. It looked like a very nice, clean site to hook people up.
Is it a Canadian website or is it an international website?
It's .com. That's the only clue I really have. I don't know whether it's Canadian or not.
Okay.
But you can connect with any business in the world, presumably.
Cool.
So yeah, that was neat to see. I was expecting it to be from like that. It was a voice actor talking about their journey towards it.
And I'm surprised like there were no voice actors speaking at all.
It was just a presentation by her.
Okay. Just
like a PowerPoint presentation. But that being said, I hadn't seen that kind of angle on being a voice actor at a con before, so I thought that was really neat.
That's fair.
I enjoyed it, and it wasn't very long, so it was like it didn't feel like it was going on.
Okay.
So I enjoyed that quite a bit.
Like, is that a thing that you're thinking? Like you are interested in, or do you think that would help like with the podcast, or
maybe a bit of both?
Was it just like an interesting thing?
Yeah, I don't know.
Because I mean, I'm certainly not going to start doing like makeup art. So
right, I don't know about like if anyone is interested in hearing the podcast via Voices.com, but I don't like. It's something I've thought about before trying to be voice act, and like this, you can see the kinds of jobs that people are asking people to do. Like she mentioned, it could be like reading off bus stops for a transit, like or be Siri or like anything like that, So it has me curious as to what kinds of jobs there are and if they'd be things that I'd be able to do. So it did its job. Yeah. So that was really cool to see.
Cool.
And
then I think we did another loop after that.
That is when I bought the Two Friends Here.
Was it? Oh my god, the day went so quickly.
Yeah.
We also did one of the things we talked about yesterday, the spooky horror museum. It was not too spooky. It was barely one spooky.
It was
because we saw a bunch of kids, like we saw like families going in, like parents with like small children. We were like, okay, it can't possibly be that scary because like here are these small children, and it's not at no point is it like, oh, small children cannot come in here. So we were like, all right. It's during the day. There's a bunch of people. It
was more played for laughs.
It was played for laughs.
I like that guy being like talking
Dr.
about
death.
Yeah, and there's like a patient sitting on the table that's a skeleton. He's like, well, he came in with a cold, but
he doesn't have the colds anymore.
Yeah, it's just like
so it was kind of cheesy, and then there was like a bunch of. So it was one of those situations where you're walking through like a tent maze, and there's like little vignettes.
Yeah,
And
it's like,
so
ooh, here's spooky babies. And
and then there was like a mermaid and some guy, and then
Well-
there was a guy with like he was sitting in an electric chair, and he
Yeah.
had one of those fluorescent lights, and then you were to hold the other end, and it would start lighting up because he's in the electric chair.
And one thing that
It was fun. It was.
Yeah.
It looked like visually. I think everybody's costumes looked
it
great.
was really fun.
Like,
yeah.
and it was a lot of fun. It wasn't too scary or anything.
And the one thing they were promoting was a raffle.
Well, there was that last little cubby was a bunch of stuff
Yeah.
you could win.
And
None of it was really anything we
well,
wanted.
yeah, and it was like we passed the thing with the mermaid, for example. She was like sitting there, looking like a mermaid,
Yeah.
and there's a little thing that said like win this, and I'm like, oh, it's like she's like in a freak show or something, and she's like being given away or something. But it was the chaise lounge she was sitting on that was being given away, and I didn't even realize that.
I didn't either. I didn't even see the win this on her exhibit, so.
Yeah.
I mean, it was interesting stuff, but it was just like stuff that wouldn't really go with our house. Isn't
We
really
did-
part of our
we
interest,
didn't-
but it was like
We didn't need to go through again, but we're like, okay, we did that.
we did it, yeah.
Yeah.
And then I think the next thing we went to was, and probably like the main thing we went to today was Nintendo Quest.
Nintendo Quest.
And I think I'm gonna let you talk about this a little bit more because like this is sort of your
Yeah, okay.
interest base.
So I'd heard about Nintendo Quest. I think I mentioned this last night via the Highland Cinema, which aired it on last night.
Yeah,
Yeah, presumably with them there.
I assume.
Because they were in town. But it is a movie, or like
Like
yeah,
a
movie.
documentary.
It's a documentary about this guy who has a big passion for video games, given the task of collecting all 678 original Nintendo games in 30 days, going across the country, with his own money.
With no one and can't use the internet.
I can't use it. That was
Although, to be honest, I'm not surprised you forgot that because it doesn't. In the beginning, they really promote that as like, oh, you can't use the internet, you can't go on eBay and just buy all of them.
I mean, he didn't.
And he didn't, but it wasn't really a thing. Like, it definitely explained why he did so much traveling, but at no point did I feel like it was adding to any sort of like drama why he was doing this. Do you know what I mean? Like, I didn't feel like, oh, he's got to do all this stuff because he can't go on the internet, or like, why couldn't he just go on the internet or anything? It didn't feel like it was impairing him aside from the time element.
Right. Yeah, so it actually ended up being really good.
It was really good.
I really enjoyed it. They had a little counter on the screen for every game that he got as he got to the 678
and days and
days
money.
and his money going down, and like some of the just seeing him like haggling with some of the shop owners because he's buying like 80 games at a time from some of these places just to get them. It was directed by Rob McCallum, and Jay Bartlett is our
Nintendo Quest.
protagonist, and they're from London, which I did not realize until we walked in there.
Yeah.
Like, we weren't even sure if it was Canadian.
Well, no, because I guess when you'd heard about it, it sort of talks about like traveling across the states, and they do, but they also hit up a bunch of places in Ontario, and they don't really go anywhere else in Canada. But like his first 3 stops are his buddy's houses in London.
Yeah.
And then he goes to, what is it, a total of about 4 different places in London.
Yeah, so now we have places, video game shops to visit in London.
And then he goes to like Brantford, and then he goes to a place in Toronto, which we didn't manage to get to last time we went to Toronto because they've moved since.
ANC Games.
Yes, ANC Games. And then he goes to a few places in the States. So it was kind of cool to be sort of like a hometown advantage, I guess.
Yeah, I didn't realize he was like from right there, and London was featured quite heavily in the movie.
Oh, like the whole like first couple of days is in London or is in London an area, and the end bits in London. He comes back
and there's a bit of like poignancy in the movie. There's a bit of a decent like little narrative to it beyond just like acquiring games.
And you get to hear like some of his personal life, his background, and sort of like where he's coming from,
and like why
why
this means
why
something
this
to
is
me.
important to him.
Yeah.
And it, how long was it? It was like an hour and a half. Like
It was
like a standard
yeah.
movie length, and it zipped along really nicely.
Yep. They had a bit of background about Nintendo.
Yeah.
About how they got to the NES stage and like.
And they interview and during these background portions, they were interviewing known Nintendo record holders, players of note, developers,
other collectors.
Yeah, a lot of players / collectors where they've these guys who become famous playing, especially on the NES.
Yeah.
And participating in like the Nintendo
World Championships.
Yeah. They talked about that. Definitely mentioned the Wizard. And so that was really interesting to get some of that background, some of which I knew, some of which I didn't know. Especially stuff about the NWC I had no idea.
Yeah.
Aside from it exists, and I know that it exists because of the Wizard.
Yes, exactly. But yeah, it was really, if you have any affection or curiosity about the original Nintendo Entertainment System at all, you should watch this. And even I would say, if you're a big collector of like anything, you will certainly get this.
Yeah, because that's what I was gonna say. I had an NES, but by the time I got an NES, I got it secondhand from someone. The N64 was out, so I've played the NES. I had a Game Boy, and then basically had no systems until our Wii U, and I guess now our DS.
Yeah.
And 3DS. So now I'm back into gaming, basically at the more than I ever have been.
Yeah.
So I'm not familiar with the NES system or like the number of titles or a lot of the titles, other than having watched other people's video blogs and reviews, and I'm watching and websites and lists and things like that, knowing that, like, kind of learning by osmosis, but have never really played it. And yeah, like Nick said, it was still really, really interesting to watch because you get that kind of collector point of view. And just, if you collect anything, it's really interesting because you can sympathize with some of the struggles.
Yeah. I think it was more dramatic as a movie, but like it wouldn't look out of place on TV. If it was like the Nintendo collector.
Yeah, and I mean they did a really good job of framing
like Nintendo Pawn Stars or something like that.
Yeah, I mean at one point they go into a guy's like storage locker and
like, you get to meet some of these collectors and see some of their like ridiculous collections in Nintendo. The guy Sid, I can't remember his last name, from Brantford, who had like. He has like one of the largest collections in Canada, if not the world. He's like 15,000 games. He was there as well.
Was he?
Yeah.
Oh.
He was sitting in the audience, like across.
Oh, they said he was the producer, and it did not occur to me that he was the same guy in.
Yeah, because he was in the movie, right? Because he gets a few games from that guy.
Yeah, It did not connect to.
But he was sitting up front during the Q&A.
But they said
portion.
He was a producer, and so I thought that was. I didn't connect that the guy they said was the producer is that same guy that was in Brantford.
Yeah.
Brampton.
And he has a PC museum, I believe.
Yeah.
In Brantford. So that was cool.
And also that family up front was friends of theirs as well.
Yeah, that's right.
That was cute. So they did have definitely a bunch of people who were in London area who were in the movie there to kind of support it.
It's great. We will I'll put the link to I believe the movie has a website where you can get the movie. And I highly recommend that you do. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun, and then they did a Q&A afterwards. I missed a little bit of that. Like I said, I went and I watched like 2 minutes of the Ron Perlman Q&A instead. Fun fact: it was about an hour and a half, maybe just under an hour and a half. The director said he shot 450 hours of footage.
Jeez.
So, yeah. So a lot of blood, sweat, and tears went into this thing, I think. Yeah. And they said they have something even crazier planned. So yeah,
they also have worked on. I guess there's a He-Man.
There's going to be one about.
And also some of them worked on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Turtle Power.
Yeah,
he's working with the guys who did Turtle Power to do one about He-Man.
Yeah,
and they're also doing one about the female heavy metal band Kitty.
Yes,
There were two little previews before the
from London.
Yep.
Yeah. And that looked really interesting too.
Yeah.
It seems like a cool group.
Yeah. So that's what Rob McCallum is up to.
Yeah, and so definitely go see Nintendo Quest if you can.
Yeah.
Because it's great.
Yeah, I hope it gets... Because he said they were doing kind of a tour with it. So I hope he gets around to more and more cities and people are able to see it. Yeah.
And then I guess the next thing we did, we diverged.
Yes.
You went and saw something on the main stage that time, and then I stayed in the screening room. You saw...
Let's see.
What was it?
Collaborating comic books. So Eric Freitas and Ulysses Farinas.
Did it get better after I left?
A little bit. Like, again, at points they were hard to hear.
Yeah.
But they were talking mostly about creativity, which I thought was pretty interesting. They're talking about having like an honest being like, that sucks, that's crap, we can't put that, and talked about how important it is when repeatedly talked about how important it is when this is what you do to make money. You need someone brutally honest to tell you when your idea is not as good and won't make as much money. I think it was Ulysses talked about how he's like, that's what cons are to me, is networking, is finding people to hire me, and those people are trying to find people to hire them higher up, and that's what it's all about. And he just talks about, he's like, I just try to flirt with them, I try to make them feel handsome, beautiful when I'm with... I try to make them like me before they like my work. So they'll be like, oh, that guy was great, I want to spend more time with that guy, and we should totally work together and stuff like that. So
cool.
It was neat. I was kind of wandering around, flipping through the comics was the closest thing to the stage. I still want to be able to hear, but I was like flipping through the comics a bit, and then for some reason they started talking about wrestling, so I sat back down, and they're talking about how it's like they like wrestling because I think they were just fans as well, but they were trying to tie it in. And they're like, it's very simple storytelling, bad guy and good guy, and they said that they learned some storytelling from that, and kind of starting with that skeleton and like building on that.
Oh, cool.
So it was, yeah, it's not what it was advertised as, but like as a panel on like talking about creativity, I thought it was really neat. And it gave you some stuff to think about.
Yeah. So kind of something that you can kind of build on for the Nickscast and associated projects.
Universal concepts you can apply. I think.
Cool.
And you watch some more movies.
I watched some more short films. That's what I've been doing this weekend. Basically, I could have just like gone to Silver City and just watched movies all weekend because that's basically what I've done. Yeah, I went to similar to the one we talked about yesterday, the sci-fi fantasy short film. Today's was marketed as a superhero short film, and for the most part it was. There were some that I think they were using the term like kind of loosely. It was more like superheroes, and then something that you would classify as like action adventure, I suppose, as opposed to sci-fi fantasy, but everything got kind of mixed in anyways.
Well, I think there are only 2 short film showcases, so they kind of had to go into one or the other, I guess.
So this one was broadly anything that you could classify as your action adventure type short films. It was maybe a little... You know what? No, I'm not going to say it was more inconsistent than yesterday, because yesterday we came out with 2 solid winners. Today I came out with 2 solid winners as well. So one of them that I didn't consider a huge winner, but it's just because I'm not a fan, but I appreciate anyone who is. Courage the Cowardly Dog, I think it was on Nickelodeon in its first run, that's what I want to say, show from the 90s. I was aware of it, but not a show that I watched. They actually had a short film, and it was like actually Courage the Cowardly Dog. It was licensed. It was the same art. At the end, the CN logo came up, so it was legit. Wallace Shawn was on it.
I love that.
It was great. And so there was a Courage short that was quite well done. So that was fun. There was a couple others. There was one, and this is the worst part. It occurred to me at the second last movie. I should have been writing that down in the titles. But the first one I didn't catch the beginning of, but it seemed like it was about a father hiring this like crazy guy to take down his daughter in an online game so that she would stop playing it, and then the daughter kicks his butt, and so...
Is it called Virtual Hitman?
Probably.
Because it sounds like what you're describing could be called Virtual Hitman, and that's the one that's...
From London.
From London.
It was fun. It was interesting, but I missed the first half because I thought, oh, maybe I'll watch the collaboration in comics, and then I didn't quite get into it, so I figured I'd swing over to the short films. And now I kind of wish, since I didn't realize it was from London, I'd seen it. It was interesting, but again, it probably would have been more fun from the beginning. There was one that was kind of... I think I want to watch it again.
Okay.
Because it was weird, and I'm sitting there going like, what's happening? It was called... If I remember what it's called, I will post it. It was done in sort of a... it was something bird. I don't know. It was done in like Adam West Batman 60s.
Oh, great.
The fights were obviously terrible, and the heroes, our heroes spoke in mangled metaphors. Like, I'm trying to remember... Probably one example that you hear most often when you think of like a mangled metaphor is like, we'll burn that bridge when we come to it. Yeah. It was that sort of thing. He was mixing metaphors and mangling them. Yeah. And his dad was a brain in a jar. And then there was like a mouse sidekick. Like she was mouse based as a sidekick, and she kept getting distracted by cheese. And like all of the wide shots were obviously small models. It was very silly. It was amusing. It was just very silly, and I would like to see it again to kind of, now that I kind of like, because I think it's one of those things you have to watch twice to be like, okay, like I'm picking up what you're putting down. So there's that one. The title of it is whatever the superhero's name is, which I can't remember. Okay. There's a couple others that didn't make as much of an impression. So the last two that they played, one showed a series of like Sundance film type logos. It was called I Am Joe, and it was about Joe Shuster, one of the co-creators of Superman. Okay, yeah. And it was done like a silent movie, so there was no dialogue. It was in sepia tone. Okay. For the most part, until you saw like clips of Superman in color. Right. And so you'd get like your card with your little line of dialogue, and then you'd get your like scene, and it was Joe Shuster in the 70s, who by this time his eyesight had declined to the point that he couldn't draw anymore, as a delivery man going to DC Comics. Right. To deliver, and everybody was like, "Oh man, it's Joe Shuster," and everything. And at this point, like, he hadn't won the legal battle to get all of his pension and everything. And they were like, "Get out of here, never come back." And then at the end, it was like all very touching, because like they've got Superman comes down and he puts his arm around, and like, and I was like, it was lovely. It was lovely. It's really short. It's maybe 5 minutes long, and if you find it, go watch it. The other one, I put it on my phone because I couldn't remember the title, was called, I think it was called We Are Vikings. Let me double check this. Total Awesome Viking Power is what it was called, so it was better. Total Awesome Viking Power follows a group, and primarily a single LARPer, and that LARP is Vikings, and they're currently in the middle of like a battle between LARPers that are ninjas. Okay. And then this one guy gets kind of like put in timeout, in LARP timeout, because he's breaking, like he's using his cell phone and stuff like that. And they're like, 3 hours, you're dead. And then Odin appears, like actual Odin. Yeah. And then he gets all involved in this like supernatural drama with Odin and trying to get his powers back and trying to escape. And it was a lot of fun. It was really, really well done. Probably the best fight scenes out of all the short films I watched today. And it was a lot of fun. It was funny. It was paced really, really nicely. The direction was great. The sound was great. Like, everything about this one was great. It was like a short... It felt like a proper short film. So those last two were excellent. And I'm kind of glad I stuck through some of the lesser films that I did watch.
I'll save the good one for the end.
Yeah. So that was what I was doing while you were doing that.
Yeah. We went for dinner. We came back just in time to see the cosplay competition. Yes. And that was the last thing that we did.
And the cosplays were great. There were some like great cosplays.
They all came out today.
Yeah. So, I mean, even those that weren't involved in the competition, there were some like wonderful cosplays who were just out on the floor today, whether they didn't get involved because their costumes weren't handmade enough, or they just weren't interested, or they just decided at the last minute, oh, let's go to the con and cosplay as something. Yeah, but on the stage, there were some really impressive cosplays. One that comes to mind is Ghost Rider, who came on with a full motorcycle.
It was, yeah.
And it looked great.
I think it was just, it must have just been like a bike, but propped up.
But yeah.
Yeah, it was really cool. The guy dressed as Star-Lord was very impressive.
Yeah.
His mask especially, was lighting up. In terms of both excellence of execution and, material selected, Captain Hook and Rufio from Hook.
We'd seen the Rufio earlier that day, and I was blown away. The Rufio looks amazing.
Yeah.
They both do, but Rufio especially is extremely elaborate.
He's got the bamboo armor and stuff like that on.
It was crazy.
It was so good.
It was so good. I mean, there were tons of cosplay. They were all great. The Tinkerbell was great. She was she was on her own, but she came out later. She had the leaf wings, and the whole wing contraption was super impressive.
Yeah.
There was also a pyramid head he wasn't part of the showcase, so I wonder if he was a professional or if he was...
He looked unbelievably good.
All he could do was stand.
Yeah.
But he was very impressive.
It was just a rotating people taking pictures with him and of him. And yeah.
I'm trying to think who else was amazing on the stage today. There was the Ghostbusters group.
There were 8 of them. They had what was his name? Louis Tully, Rick Moranis' character, with the glasses and the metal helmet with the wires going. And
he was acting the hell out of that part.
Everyone else, they had a still smoking trap held up, and they had it was 4 guys and 3 girls or something. There were a bunch of people.
There was
guys and girls.
5 and 8 people.
Yeah. Yeah, they had great costumes. Their proton packs looked really good. They were last.
Because they kind of had to be.
Because they were a huge group.
They're a huge group, and they put on a bit of a performance too.
Some people were doing little skits when they got
up
there.
That wasn't a huge part of it, and I wonder if it's just a smaller con, and that's why.
Yeah, some people are we're gonna do this. Some people are no, I'm just gonna go up there, smile, and get out. Yeah.
A lot of anime / video game characters that I can recognize as an anime or video game character, and that's about it.
There's a great Assassin's Creed.
May have been the same Assassin's Creed we saw yesterday, but with more stuff on it.
I never played Assassin's Creed, but I know that's the dude from Assassin's Creed, and he looked great.
There was a family. I didn't catch who they were from. It was a video game.
They're zombified.
The little girl. It made me wonder if it was what's the one with Big Brother and Little Sister?
Is that BioShock?
I think so.
Yeah.
Because I thought that's what Little Sister looked like. I might be wrong. If you are, please correct me in the comments, because I don't know. The first one that went out was another kind of family. It was a mother and a daughter. The daughter was maybe 2, dressed as the cutest Link I've ever seen. Yeah. And she was...
Navi?
Navi.
Yeah.
And Link did not want to be there. She didn't want to be there, but she was so sweet. And then there was ones I saw on the floor. I saw a really impressive Princess Peach on the floor. I saw... Who else did I see? I saw this girl. This is just her height. She's a friggin' 6'5" tall Sailor Moon. I was just impressed because I'm wow.
There were some great looking Daleks that were roaming around.
Well, that's the is it the Canadian or is it the London Doctor Who Appreciation Society?
The London chapter of the Canadian Doctor Who.
They had 4 Daleks when you went by their booth. They had one. It wasn't special
weapons.
Special weapons.
He just had
but he was
huge
just
guns on his side.
Dalek.
And they had the voice modulator that sounded just like.
Yeah, and then they had a standard Dalek, and they had a black one, and I forget what the 4th one is.
Yeah.
But they had a couple of different colors of Daleks.
And they had a TARDIS.
They did have a TARDIS standing there.
Yeah.
Which was really neat. And I'm trying to think who else I saw, though, that was really, really impressive today that was just on the floor. There's a lot. There's about 500 Harley Quinns. No disrespect to anyone who dresses as Harley Quinn.
There's only one that came up on the stage, and she was also dressed as... Oh, you're right. There was one dressed as a Twi'lek. from Star Wars.
Sorry. And then there was Pajama Party Harley Quinn, which was cute.
So they were both like
different,
different. Yeah, like
they were
different
cute.
standout. Yeah, cute. But there were lots of great cosplayers there today.
Yeah.
It was fun to see.
Oh, I saw Batgirl of Burnside,
which
is a comic I just read and am super in love with, and is a potential cosplay idea for myself.
Yeah, it's a great costume.
I saw her and I was really excited by that because I think it's a great like wearable costume.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not like tights.
Reasonable. Some people, you're like, how are you?
At least it's September and not August.
Yeah, exactly.
Or not like December.
Yeah.
Point is, this got me, especially today, made me like really disappointed I didn't get my cosplay together, and I'm really gonna try to buckle down and get my cosplay together for City so I can wear it. And definitely has the old cogs moving for potential cosplay ideas. I think I sort of probably got a list of about 10 right now.
Oh yeah, when you go there's like, oh that and that
and
that.
And just like even seeing what there is, it's making me think like where I can fill in the gaps. Like, oh, I could do this cosplay because I didn't see any of this, and I think this is,
that could
like,
fit in.
I could do that fairly easily, and I think I definitely need to get a cosplay body. Like, again, no disrespect to anyone. Like, everybody's body shape is welcome. I mean, I think I personally would feel like a little bit more confident just looking more like a comic book character. We'll see how ambitious I get with that. I got a t-shirt today! But yeah, that was the end of our day.
Yeah, and that's we had London Comic Con for Saturday. Tomorrow,
what do we have on tap?
I'm gonna see what it takes to make a video game from scratch.
I wish I'd signed up for Tate Steinsnick. He's doing an Advanced FX workshop tomorrow, which I think will be really interesting. He does do like a lot of zombie makeup though, which is again not a huge favorite of mine, but he's super talented, and I wish I'd got the advance tickets for that. However, it's 10 o'clock in the morning, and I want to sleep in.
Yeah. Charles Martinet, we believe is the voice of Mario, is going to be doing Q&A tomorrow, which should be kind of fun.
That'll be really cool. And then the junior cosplay competition is at 2 o'clock, and there were definitely some kids running around with like some good costumes.
Yeah.
I mean, Baby Link is still like totally my favorite.
And we're going to find out who won the contest tonight.
So maybe somebody we talked about, maybe not. There were 4 judges. I didn't catch any of their names. One of them is London Batman, who was London Batman and cosplaying as London Green Lantern.
London was London Batman who put on a Green Lantern ring. So he was Batman, but he also had like a little Green Lantern
jumpsuit on. There was an Ariel in the pink dress variant, dark Supergirl variant, and then Black Canary, who was a better actress than the actress who plays Black Canary on Arrow.
Yeah.
What else are we doing tomorrow? You want to make a video game? Yeah. I'm probably going to watch the Canadian Indie Movie panel because that's apparently what I've spent all weekend doing, is watching various movies.
Well, you probably wouldn't see them otherwise, right?
Yeah, that's right. Like, I don't know when I'd ever see these shorts.
We're soaking up lots of local nerdy culture, which is great, which is what it should be about.
Which is the point. That's the whole reason we're here, and the whole reason we're reporting on this is so you guys can hear what it's like this year and possibly go next year, and maybe even get hyped for City next month, which again we already have the tickets. We're going to, and we will be joined by T and the Goat.
Yeah, so stay tuned.
So it's going to be a party. Yep. Our recaps are going to be much higher energy, I think, for Forest City because we have one day and there's 4 of us.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun.
It's going to be a lot of fun.
But until tomorrow, we will see you then.
Yes. Good night, true believers.